This week on Hometown Ghost Stories. New Orleans is full of dark history. From haunted buildings and homes to curses and even vampires, it seems that every building in this historic city has its own tale of paranormal activity. Tonight, we focus on the oldest structure used as a bar in the United States, Lafitte's Blacksmith shop. We also dive into the mysteries of the Seance rooms of Muriel's Jackson Square, and even dive into some of the terrifying vampire legends in the Crescent City. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, New Orleans, Louisiana, Part 1.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Olivia stumbled out of the bar and stared at the mass of people walking down the street. She shook her head to try to clear the double vision, then turned her head from left to right, looking for the rest of the bridal party. Somehow she had gotten separated from the group, and they must have moved on to the next bar without her. After walking Bourbon Street for what she thought was maybe 5 minutes, she decided to just head back to the hotel. "At least I have my room key," she said out loud to no one in particular. Olivia didn't partake in drinking too often and wasn't feeling great. The group was staying at Hotel Monteleone, which was luckily just a few blocks over from where she was. The walk back felt like it took hours. Olivia stopped every few minutes to try to hold down the sickness she felt swirling in her stomach. Finally, the hotel came into view, and she darted for the golden elevator doors. She entered and pressed the button to floor 14. As the elevator began to rise, she fumbled in her purse, looking for her room key. She found it just as the doors opened to her floor, and she stepped out into the ornate hallway. As she crossed the threshold to the floor, she felt an icy cold envelop her body. She shivered and pressed on down the hallway. Olivia took a right at the intersecting hall to head towards the room when she felt something grab her foot. Her balance, which was already questionable, gave way and she fell forward, essentially belly flopping onto the hallway floor. She felt the wind escape her body, and her eyes shot wide open as she tried to keep the swirling alcohol in her stomach at bay. As Olivia laid on the ground in a daze, she could swear she heard the laughter of a child. She turned her head to face the direction her room was in, but all she saw was a small shadow quickly dash out of sight. "I'm never drinking again," she mumbled as she struggled to get to her feet. She stood up and hugged the wall until getting to her room. She slipped in and grabbed a bottle of water, chugged as much as she could, and face-planted on the closest bed. Olivia laid there, feeling the room spinning around her, and desperately tried to fall asleep to make it stop. That's when she felt a tug on her leg. She turned her head to look at the foot of her bed, and nothing was there. She rolled back over to try to sleep when that icy cold feeling from earlier covered her body again. She went to sit up to turn the AC off, and that's when she saw him, a slightly transparent boy with dark rings around his eyes, dressed in 1800s clothing, standing at the end of her bed. "Why won't you play with me?" the boy said in a voice no louder than a whisper. The color rushed out of Olivia's body and her mouth opened wide. She let out a blood-curdling scream that rang down the hallway that could be heard by every guest on the 14th floor of the Hotel Monteleone. I'm Phantomette, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Deep in the swampy bayou of southern Louisiana sits the infamously haunted city of New Orleans. Founded in 1718 by French Mississippi Company under Jean-Baptiste Le Moyne de Bienville, New Orleans was shaped by French, Spanish, and American influences. Initially a French colony, it was ceded to Spain in 1763 after the 7 Years' War, and then returns to France briefly before being sold to the United States in the 1803 Louisiana Purchase. The city's strategic location along the Mississippi River made it a key port for trade and commerce. Throughout the 19th century, New Orleans thrived as a cultural melting pot, with a blend of French, Spanish, African, and Caribbean influences shaping its unique Creole culture. It became known for its vibrant music, cuisine, and festivals like Mardi Gras, rooted in French Catholic traditions. The Civil War and Reconstruction impacted the city, but it rebounded by the late 1800s as a major trade and cultural center. In the 20th century, New Orleans gained international recognition for jazz music and its distinctive architecture, particularly in the French Quarter. Over the years, New Orleans, particularly the French Quarter, has gained a reputation for being one of the most haunted cities in the world, and we had a chance to explore this city and its haunted locations. One of the first spots we visited was Lafitte's blacksmith shop.
We're here at Lafitte's. This is an 18th century blacksmith turned pub, and this is a location that privateers, when they came ashore, they would frequent and they would visit, and now it's said to be haunted by the ghost of Lafitte himself.
Built in 1732, Lafitte's is reputed to be the oldest structure used as a bar in the United States. Between 1772 and 1791, the property is believed to have been used by the Lafitte brothers, Jean and Pierre, as a New Orleans base for their barataria smuggling operation. Pierre Lafitte was a blacksmith, specializing in horseshoes, which were a major commodity during his time, and Jean Lafitte was a known privateer and smuggler. During the late 18th century and early 19th century, the Lafitte brothers were alleged to have used the building to plot illegal seizures and sell contraband under the guise of a legitimate blacksmith business, although no documentation exists that proves this. Given the amount of history at this location, it should come as no surprise that it's haunted. 1986, Bourbon Street, Lafitte's Tavern. The crowd of patrons filled the little old tavern much quicker than Debbie had expected. It was her first night working as a bartender at Lafitte's Tavern in the French Quarter. She knew it was a popular spot, but the rate at which it reached capacity caught her by surprise. Fortunately, this wasn't her first rodeo. 43 years old, and more than half those years were spent bartending all over the South. San Antonio, Houston, Miami. She was a seasoned veteran of the bar room, and she fell right into her groove. Debbie was a crowd pleaser, and the patrons who she served at Lafitte's that night seemed to be very happy with her service. That was a relief. There was one patron, however, who was beginning to give Debbie a funny feeling. He was a tall man, leaning against the fireplace. He wore a long dark coat and a black hat with a brim that covered his eyes when he looked down. He had a scowl on his face. Debbie wasn't on familiar enough terms with the staff to mention anything, and nobody else seemed to mind him, or even notice him for that matter. The night went on, and Debbie continued pouring drinks, occasionally glancing over to the fireplace to see if the man was still looming. After a while, she looked over, and he was gone. As time ticked by, she forgot about the strange man, and closing time approached. The bar was still relatively busy when the manager called for last call. A group of patrons pushed towards the bar, and Debbie began pointing at people in the front to get their last orders for drinks. That's when she saw him again, standing a head taller than everybody else, back by the fireplace. Except this time, the brim of his hat wasn't covering his eyes. He was staring right at her, and the flickering flame of the fireplace made it appear as if his eyes were glowing red. This gave Debbie the creeps. He was definitely staring right at her. She directed her attention away from the strange man and towards her customers. She ignored the man for the rest of the night, and everyone eventually cleared out. Debbie was relieved. The man was gone, and she had handled herself exceptionally on her very busy first night. The other bartenders were in the back counting tips, while Debbie stayed out front restocking the bar for the next day. Suddenly, Debbie felt like she was being watched. She looked up and saw the man in black standing alone in the middle of the room next to the fireplace, staring at her, eyes glowing red. He was scowling. Debbie called out to him that they were closed and he needed to leave, but the man just stood there. Debbie called out again, and she heard the door to the kitchen open behind her. She spun around to see the manager walking out looking concerned. "What's wrong?" he asked. Debbie motioned back towards the fireplace where the man was standing, but to her surprise, there was nobody there. "A strange man in a black hat with red eyes was standing there staring at me a moment ago," Debbie started, but the manager just laughed. "That's just one of the many ghosts that haunt this old building. You'll get used to it," he said, leaving Debbie alone to question her sanity. Staff and visitors to Lafitte's have reported hearing unexplained footsteps coming from the upper floors, despite the fact that these areas are no longer in use. Some have also heard whispering voices or muffled conversations that stop abruptly when somebody investigates. A particularly well-known haunting at Lafitte's is the appearance of a glowing red-eyed figure near the fireplace. Some believe this figure could be Pierre Lafitte or a malevolent spirit tied to the building's dark past. This apparition is often seen in fleeting glimpses, especially by those near the hearth. The fireplace is said to be a hotspot for paranormal activity, with cold drafts and eerie sensations reported. Another frequent apparition is that of the woman dressed in white, believed to be the victim of a tragedy either at the bar or somewhere nearby. This ghostly figure has been seen wandering near the bar's second floor, which is now closed off to the public, and around the entrance, vanishing suddenly when approached. Many visitors and employees have reported seeing the ghost of Jean Lafitte himself. He is often spotted sitting quietly in the darkened corners of the bar, watching patrons. His ghost is described as a shadowy figure with a stern face and 18th century clothing. Some believe that Lafitte's ghost lingers to protect his hidden treasure, rumored to be buried somewhere within or near the building.
In 1718, when New Orleans was founded, a man named Claude Trepanier was awarded a piece of land for his assistance in the expedition. He built a small cottage on what later became a prime piece of property due to its proximity to the area that would later become known as Jackson Square in 1721. Around 1745, a wealthy man named Jean-Baptiste acquired the property and tore down the cottage, building an elaborate home in its place for his family. Jean died in 1765, and the house was passed down to his son. But when the family money ran out, he was forced to sell it at auction. In 1776, Pierre-Philippe de Marigny purchased the elaborate home and used it when he was in town from his plantation, known as the Faubourg-Marigny area today. On March 21, 1788, the Great New Orleans Fire ripped through the city, burning down 856 of the 1,100 structures in the French Quarter, including the city's main church, the army barracks, the jail, and the municipal building. A portion of Pierre-Philippe de Marigny's building was also destroyed by the fires. Pierre-Antoine Lepardi Jordan purchased the property and restored it to its original glory. Jordan put his heart and soul into this project and turned the building into his dream home. While Jordan loved his house, he also had a love for high-stakes gambling, and his luck would run out with everything on the line. Pierre lost his dream home in a game of cards, which drove him to take his own life on the second floor of this house. Today, the building still stands and has been turned into a restaurant and lounge called Muriel's Jackson Square. They serve classic Creole fare, host private events, they have seance rooms on the second floor where Jordan ended his life, they have a horrifying amount of poltergeist activity, and are well known for their delicious Sunday brunch. According to Muriel's, Pierre-Antoine Lepardi Jordan is still with them today in spiritual form inside of his former home. His ghost is said to appear as a glimmer of sparkly light wandering around the lounge. The second floor seance rooms are believed to be the area of the building where Jordan's spirit spends most of his time. Staff and patrons have witnessed objects being moved around throughout the restaurant by something unseen. Although Jordan's ghost is considered Muriel's main resident, They believe the building is haunted by multiple lost souls. There's a mischievous ghost in the courtyard bar that is also said to roam the property. Since March of 2001, there have been 3 different occasions where glasses have flown from behind the bar, smashing against the brick wall 12 feet away. It's theorized that some of the servants may have stayed behind in the afterlife and are behind this poltergeist-like activity. Others believe these could be the ghosts of previous owners and patrons of the property during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Others think that maybe Jordan is behind these haunts as well, frustrated that he can't cross over. Paranormal investigations have taken place at Muriel's many times, turning up a wide range of evidence. From strange unexplainable shadows to unknown voices, most supernatural activity is captured in the seance rooms. Investigators have heard strange distinct knocks on the brick walls of these rooms that may interact as communication. Audio recordings of a female voice have also been caught on tape while no females were present. The staff at Muriel's firmly believe that the resident ghosts at the restaurant are harmless, and they can even be entertaining at times. Those who have seen or felt a presence here have never felt threatened, and the owners have welcomed in the kindred spirits. They've even set a private table underneath the stairwell for Jordan's spirit. They set the table for him, leaving him bread and pouring his favorite red wine. We had the pleasure of visiting this beautiful restaurant, and were even given access to see the table up close, where Jordan's ghost may have been sitting just feet away from us. We also spent some time in the seance room, which was absolutely gorgeous, and honestly may have been my favorite bar in the entire city. While they say that these ghosts are harmless, shattering glasses against a brick wall across from the bar sounds pretty alarming. But if you take a ghost tour around New Orleans, many of them make a stop at Muriel's Jackson Square, and from the sidewalk, you can have a look at Jordan's table as his ghostly figure may just be sitting enjoying his wine and bread.
The spooky history of New Orleans isn't limited to just its ghost stories. Few places in the country have tales of vampires that come close to matching New Orleans, and these stories date back centuries. One of the oldest tales of the creatures of the night in the Big Easy is that of the Casket Girls. In the early 1700s, the French men that were building the New Orleans area lacked women to court. The French Louisiana governor sent a letter back to France asking for women to be sent in for the men to marry. This wasn't that uncommon of a request, as the French had sent in women to other colonies as well. In most cases, these women were in good social standing within France, and this is what Governor Jean-Baptiste thought would be sent to Louisiana as well. Instead, France gathered prostitutes, women in prisons, and even took girls from orphanages to send to the colony. These women would be given a single box to put their belongings in and stored below deck, and they usually would not be allowed to see the sun until their voyage was complete. It was always a sight to behold when these women arrived at the docks of New Orleans, but one particular group would lead to the entire town talking. As this group of women walked off the ship, their appearance was startling. The gathering group were staring at these women who had pale white skin. They would go on to drag their coffin-like boxes down the street towards the Ursuline convent, where they were to stay until wed. As they walked, the crowd gathered watched the terrifying-looking women struggle without offering to help. They watched as the women's skin began to turn red and blister under the Louisiana sun. Upon reaching the convent, they were brought up to the 3rd floor. Upon arrival, the Ursuline sisters were perplexed to find that the caskets the women were dragging to the convent were empty. It's rumored that these caskets were not for the women to bring their belongings at all, but for them to slumber in until the evening. Upon awaking, the women would leave the convent to seek out victims to feed on. The Ursuline sisters would eventually lock these women up on the 3rd floor, and even nail the window shutters closed with nails that were blessed from the Pope himself. It's rumored that the 3rd floor hasn't been opened since, and that the Casket Girls' belongings are still locked away up there. And some have said that there is still something living on the 3rd floor that comes out at night to feed on the tourists and citizens of New Orleans. As well known as the Casket Girls are, the most famous vampire to ever grace New Orleans may be someone else entirely. In 1902, a man with substantial wealth and charisma arrived in New Orleans. He quickly set up residence at 1039 Royal Street. The man was Jacques Saint Germain, and he quickly established himself as a prominent figure in the community. Not only would he be seen at exclusive clubs in the city, but he was always with beautiful women. The parties that he threw were the talk of the town, but many would also gossip about the host. He claimed to be a descendant of the Count Saint Germain, who had lived over 100 years before. Yet, Jacques looked strikingly like the Count in his paintings, and the rumors began to swirl. He was also known to talk about certain historical events with a level of extreme detail, almost as if he had been there himself. During his parties, he would have the best spread of food that anyone had ever seen, yet no one ever saw him eat any of it. In fact, no one had ever seen him eat ever. He simply would drink what appeared to be red wine out of a chalice. Although eccentric, many didn't think much more of the behavior. After all, he was usually the life of the party. One evening, Jacques hired a beautiful woman to be his date at a party that he was throwing that night. She entered his home and began to look around and became enamored with the expensive items that adorned the home. He then invited her upstairs to a room away from the party to see more rare artifacts. They entered the room, and one particular item caught her attention, and she rushed over to examine it. As she stood with her back to Jacques, she suddenly felt a massive pressure on her neck. She threw herself forward and turned her head to see that he had bitten her, and he had her blood smeared across his face. She screamed, and men from the downstairs party quickly ran up and started pounding on the locked door. The woman continued to panic and ran towards a window in the room, jumping 2 stories to the ground and landing hard. She was somehow able to get to her feet and rushed to the police to relay what happened as they brought her to the hospital. The police went to the house and asked to speak with Jacques, who was nowhere to be found. They searched the home and were shocked to find no food in the house other than what was being served at the party. The only item they were able to find were bottles of red wine, which upon tested were found to be mixed with blood. The police searched for Saint Germain, but he was never seen again. The woman who had escaped would die shortly after from injuries sustained. Since the incident, people have claimed to see Jacques throughout the city in different decades. It's believed that he roams the streets of New Orleans using the name Jack, looking for his newest victims.
What is going on, folks, and welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 139, covering New Orleans, part 1. There will be another one of these next week where we cover more of New Orleans. Either way, I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
I think we have enough material to just cover New Orleans for the next 52 weeks and just hometown New Orleans stories at this point.
Pretty much, yeah. We had tossed around the idea of doing the entire month of October on New Orleans, but figured we'd shake it up a little bit. Speaking of people who've been shaken up a little bit, we're also joined by Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hey, thanks. I'm so shaken up, but
nice job.
I'll get through this.
A little group effort on this episode again. There's actually 4 people on this. We have a special guest today. I want to give a quick shout out to Velcro, who donated 10 Hometown Ghost Stories memberships. Crazy Legs came in with 10, and then Matthew T also came in with 10 gifted memberships. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. I also want to give a huge shout out to everyone who showed up to our live show. Just when you thought you weren't going to hear about the live show anymore, because all we've done is plug it for the last 6 months. I do want to give a huge shout out. It was an awesome time. Had a great turnout. People came from all over the country to come see us. And I had so much fun at this event. So it was great to do a whole show live, and they got a little sneak peek of a secret destination that we swore never to cover on this show, but we did, and it was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, shout out to everyone that came. We had both Rachel B's in the same room. We're able to take photos with them. They are our RIPs of the week. Rachel for flying in from North Dakota. The other Rachel flew in from North Dakota. The original Rachel B has been to any live event that we've done. So they were very worthy of RIPs of the week.
And huge shout out to Kate and Steve M. They showed up and happened to be sitting right in front of us. And I found that if you don't bundle up a t-shirt, you can't throw it very far. Yeah. Maybe I can't throw anything very far, but all of the t-shirts hit Steve in the face, and he kindly redistributed. So we were kind of throwing stuff out from the stage. I say stage, but from the table that we were sitting at, and pretty much all of them went directly to Steve. So you guys were awesome, and shout out to you guys. Also, we're gonna need all those shirts back, because that was actually just my laundry. Please. I was just throwing out my dirty laundry so people could wash it and bring it back. But once again, that was amazing. So thanks to everybody who came out. We're gonna do another one next year. We'll start promoting that immediately. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, what all our episodes will be is just us promoting our next live show.
It's pretty much what our last few episodes have just been, but we're not done yet. This Friday, we have our weekend in Block Island. It's going to be amazing. I believe there's one room left. So if you want to join last minute, you could still grab the final room and maybe grab a ticket and join us. Back-to-back nights, live investigations on the very haunted Block Island, Rhode Island. Very exciting stuff. We'll drop the flyer again for people who are looking for information on that, or you can go to our website, hometownghoststories.com, click on events, and that one should be up there.
And for an extra $500 a night, we will send Dave to your room to just stand over your bed and not say anything and stare at you.
He'll wear that outfit that the guy at Lafitte's was wearing. With all the buttons. Absolutely terrifying. So today on the show, we have a special guest. So I want to welcome on Lindsey Cennamo. She's also known as Phantomette, paranormal investigator. She's on YouTube. She's on Instagram. You can go check her out. Welcome to the show, Lindsey. What's going on?
Hey, how are you?
There you are. Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining.
Hi, guys.
Nice.
Nice job narrating that intro story, too. And thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it took a couple tries, but we got it.
I know the feeling.
A couple tries is the theme of doing voiceover work. It just I'm not great at it personally,
especially when it involves like French names. That's fun.
Oh my god. Oh, we should make a mass correction. Just for everyone, every French name is pronounced baguette. So we just nailed all that for you. So leave us alone in the comments for the rest of our lives, basically.
I had to look up every single word, every single name, and try to get the pronunciation correct, and probably still butchered all of them. So don't come after us for that. We're sorry. French is hard, but French is a tough one.
You should have just did what I did, and I just pronounced the name 18 different ways throughout the story. So at some point I said it right. So I mean,
yeah. One of them, Jean Baptiste, whatever his last name was, I tried it so many times. I was like, you know what? He's just getting left as Jean Baptiste. I cannot say his last name, whatever it was. But anyways, so we're covering New Orleans now. We did go down there, as we obviously discussed in the episode. Many people tuned into the live streams when we were down there. One of my favorite cities on the planet. I've been down there a few times now. It's so much fun. And it's the great thing about it. And I believe Seth, or maybe it was Velcro who said it in chat. They said, did you only go to haunted bars? And the answer is yes, but it wasn't hard to do that, because pretty much every building in New Orleans is haunted, or they at least have some sort of ghost story. Even the ones that we would stop in at, for dinner or something like that, and just along the way, I would ask the bartender, like, hey, is this place haunted? They're like, oh yeah. It's like not on the lists or anything, or it's not really Googleable, but every single building down there has their ghost story. When you have a city this old, and when you have so much death that's happened in this city, if you go back to the fires, you go back to the battles, the wars, just so much dark history in this city. The floods, obviously, it's absolutely a place that should be very paranormally active, and we believe that it absolutely is. Yes. Yeah. We kicked this off by talking about Lafitte's, and Lafitte's we went to, I think, every day. We just kept stopping in at Lafitte's. It happened to be down towards the end of Bourbon Street, or I don't know how long Bourbon Street goes, but it's kind of at the end of all the chaos of Bourbon Street. So you have obviously the city is flooded with people every single night on Bourbon Street. there's just, wall to wall bars and music and chaos. But once you get down towards that end of Bourbon Street, it's much quieter and calm. But Lafitte's is such a cool bar. And we kept swinging by there, and the ghost stories there are pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's haunted by a lot of different things. So there's the spirits that they know. They believe that Jean Lafitte is the pirate who haunts the building. They believe that he haunts the upstairs floor, which is not open to the public. Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Lindsey,
that's
put your
fun.
hat on.
I like that.
And they hear his footsteps walking around upstairs, and his apparition will appear in the restaurant sitting in the booth, much minding his own business, which is, I guess, would be pretty creepy if you saw that. And the other known hauntings there are the Lady in White, which is, we almost never hear about a lady in white.
I've actually never heard the story of a lady in white. Please continue.
Yeah. So this, she haunts, they don't know who she is or what historical ties she might have to the building, but this is a building that has so much history. It's seen so much, good things and bad things. It was a bar and restaurant for many years. It was a blacksmith for many years. And it was apparently a front for a place of lots of crime. So there could have been a number of different possibilities that this woman who haunts it could have been affiliated with this building. But there's also this dark entity that haunts there. They don't really know what it is. People think it could be a demon. They think it could be the ghost of Pierre Lafitte because he haunts near the hearth, which I guess if it was a blacksmith, that would have been where the blacksmith, pounded out most of his iron. So that could be, it could be residual energy from him being there. I think that probably makes the most sense, but they said he shows up with dark, he shows up all shadowy with red eyes, and that people associate that with the demonic. So that's another theory there.
I wonder why that would make people uncomfortable in the bar.
I don't know.
With red eyes.
Staring at them with his fiery red eyes. I can't imagine. But those are like the three known hauntings there. And then there's a whole bunch of other just weird haunted activity that goes on, like doors opening and closing, the disembodied footsteps, the disembodied voices. So that could be a number of different spirits. And absolutely. I think like hotels, taverns, you get a lot of different energy over time, especially one that's several hundred years old like this one is.
Yeah, especially one that was a pirate hangout. You can understand that there might have been some violence that happened inside there. But a lot of these bars in New Orleans you go to, they've been remodeled. They look new. They're updated. They're very modern. This one you walk into and you're like, oh, this place is old as hell. Like this clearly probably looks exactly the same as it did back then. Now, obviously, it's not gross. I mean, they have, some, nice bar top or whatever in the little piano area and stuff. But the walls, the hearth that's there, everything with this place, the outside of the building as well, it looks super, super, super old. And you got to think that it probably looks a lot like it has always looked. And yeah. So it's not one of those places that you walk into. We went to a few different hotels. Obviously, the hotel that we stayed at was super classy. Like the lobby was amazing. So if you told me that was built 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, they did a cool job of making it look authentic when it comes to the structure and everything with the other buildings in the area. But I would believe it. This one, you're like, this thing was built hundreds of years ago. This thing is ancient. And I love that look. And that's why I love that bar. It's just such a cool place. And when you couple that with the haunted history, it's definitely on the must-visit place if you go down to New Orleans for sure.
Lindsey, were you able to get over to Lafitte's when you were there? Because we're going to talk about your experience.
No, I actually did not make it over there, which is disappointing.
Yeah, it is so tough to do everything in New Orleans when you're there. We were there for 3 days, and we still had a million things that we wish we could have done as well. So I totally understand not getting to every single haunted location. Pivoting from Lafitte's, Lindsey, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Bloody Mary stop you went on?
Oh yeah. So I went to Bloody Mary's haunted museum. She's got like a bit of a voodoo shop that doubles as a museum. It used to be a brothel, or it has some crazy history. So when I went there, I did a bit of a private tour. There was a couple people there, and they just kind of let you roam around and use some equipment, and they tell you the stories about what went on in there. And it was very dark. I believe there was a couple that fought, and they found the body in the fridge, and like the original fridge is still there, which is strange.
The fridge
And
that had the body is still there.
yeah,
Yikes.
that's what she said. And there was also a stove that was involved that was still there. So something happened with burning a body in the stove, like some really dark stuff. And it all the original stuff like that is just
What
still kind of hanging out in there.
was
And
it?
they had a
Jeffrey Dahmer? Like that would what's going on with all these
it
cooking
sounds
supplies?
like that.
What did
But
they what did they use the fridge for? Hopefully not to store food.
no, it wasn't on, I don't believe. I
Okay,
think it was
good.
just in there in the upper level of the museum.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of set up like an apartment. And the couple that died there or got murdered, there's pictures of them in there. And if you do that tour, she does bring you to her house too, which is interesting. She has a very old Victorian home with just crazy voodoo stuff everywhere. Just things I've never seen before that seem like they're just in movies, but she's like legit into voodoo, like really intense stuff that I've never encountered. So it was a unique experience.
Yeah,
But that place
according
is very active. You can feel it when you walk in. It's a different kind of energy.
yeah, according to chat, they said that it was or Dana says it was a famous murder. The body was in the stove and in a pot on the stove, and then
Okay.
photobomb came through and said they found her head in a pot in the oven.
Yikes.
And then Brenda C came through and said, just because you guys are awesome and I love your show, while donating $50 in super chat. Thank you so much, Brenda C. Absolutely amazing. That building is cool. When you started describing it, I wasn't sure. And I know we went to a couple of these voodoo shops and museums, but I don't know if I paid attention to the names to know if that was one of the ones that we went in. But so they actually let you go in there and just do like a paranormal investigation?
Yeah, they offer it as a tour. So I don't know if you can do it privately or not. I think I have seen people do that, but it was a tour of maybe like 10 people. So you have a certain amount of time in the museum. They do some experiments with equipment, then give you free reign to just roam around. And then she kind of puts you in a van and drives you to these different cemeteries, and then you end at her house.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
I think
If we
this
weren't
gives us
booked wall to wall with things to do on that trip, I would say that I was bummed out that we didn't do it, but we had no time to do that. So next time for sure. Sorry, what were you talking?
I also think this gives us a great idea for when we start our ghost tour business, where we're at the end of it, we're just like we funnel people into a van and bring them back to our house, and like now you guys have to watch the Patriots game with us for
Oh, I
3
thought you were going to
hours.
say dismember them. I was like, we probably shouldn't. It's not good for business.
I mean, that would be like a one trip thing.
I think it's actually worse to make them watch the Patriots right now.
It might be. It might be. It might be. I'd rather my dismembered head end up on a stove than have to sit through another Patriots game this season.
Yeah,
No fun.
not great. What other places did you do? So forgive me, I'm not familiar with your New Orleans trip. Did you do other investigations while you're down there? I know I was on your YouTube earlier. I saw you've investigated a bunch of places.
Yeah, I wasn't there for too long. I want to say I was there for like 2 days passing through, pretty much. So that tour took up pretty much a whole day. So I didn't hit any other locations besides just some cemeteries, but I was a little disappointed in like the ones I wanted to go to. You could only visit them as a tour.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah, they
you
had a
can't
huge
just
problem
roam.
with vandalism down there. Not just like spray paint or anything, but people were breaking into these cemeteries and breaking off like the iron crosses, and they were even
Mhm.
like climbing some of these bigger monuments and stealing the statues off of them and stuff, and selling them on the black market. And you can still see that as evident if you go through the which one did we go to, Rob? Because we did take one of those cemetery tours.
We went to the big one. We went to St. Louis is it number 1 or number 2? It's the one that has Nicolas
think it was number
Cage's.
That's the one I try to go to, and it was like a booked up tour, so I didn't
Yeah.
go. But Bloody Mary knows like the good spots that are kind of off the beaten path that are you can just go to them, like regular cemeteries that are very cool.
Oh my
Nice.
God. Jesse, we have to tell the story because me and Jesse went on this tour while Dave went and like swam in the swamp or some shit.
Yeah.
We were in this tour, Lindsey, right? And we have like this older woman tour guide. She had to be in like her mid 70s, I would assume.
170s.
170s, yeah. I think she built the cemetery. But she's going through this tour with us, and we get to the very end. And the cemetery is like 20 degrees warmer too, so it's like super hot in there because of all the stone. And we're standing by the tomb of Marie Laveau. and she's telling the story, and I'm standing in front of her, and this woman just mid-sentence stops and stares ahead, and just with this like terrifying expression on her face of just pure stern, and she just was like staring in my direction for 45 seconds without speaking.
Yeah, me and Robert are standing next to each other. We're just kind of doing like the look back, like, is she looking at us? Are we doing something wrong? I'm always doing something wrong on these tours. I'm always the guy that drifts behind to go get footage. But like at that point, we weren't doing anything. We were just listening to her story. And this was the most horrifying thing I saw in New Orleans, was this old woman who just completely froze, and she's just staring in our direction. We're like stepping out of the way, so she looks past us. Turns out it was nothing. She was just waiting for like one person to catch back up to the group. And then she doesn't address it at all. She picks back up in the middle of her sentence where she left off like 3.5 minutes later. And it was, dude, it was like, it just sent chills down my spine. Like, I don't know. I guess we didn't tell the story great, but it was horrible.
It was like a movie scene. It was like just like a movie. Also, old people terrifying in general. Just the elderly as a community. You guys are scary. Please stop being so scary.
Everybody in the group thought they were in trouble. And then we started to worry about her. Like Micah just said, was it a stroke? Like then we started wondering, like, is she gonna be all right? But I mean, she didn't fall over. She just stood there. Anyways, we can move on. It was terrifying.
Possessed.
Yes,
and it was right in front of right in front of Marie Laveau's. We're like, she is possessed. It was a very, very scary moment in my life, and I never want to experience that again.
Cool cemetery though. Very cool cemetery. I mean, like whenever you have these above ground ones where you have all of the mausoleums and everything, it's definitely super eerie, but it was just 1,000,000,000 degrees, middle of the day. Very hot, very hot.
Yeah, they explained to us how those graveyards work as well, where I had no idea that you get put into these tombs and essentially your body just cooks for a year in it, and it sort of, your ashes collect in a corner. And they're not allowed to open it for a year. And then they just stuff more family members in there throughout the years as you die. And you're all just sort of collect in the same tomb.
They're kind of set up with this little system inside where the remains will kind of just slide off into the corner. So
they burn?
Because
it's slow cooker. Like from what?
I think it's just from the extreme temperature, or we're probably getting this completely wrong. But yeah, something along those lines. But when I look at those tombs, I always assumed that it would just be like one body on this slate, another one on another level, another one on another level, and then once it fills up, you can't do it. But you walk by these, what do you even call them? They're not. Would you say tomb?
Yeah, I would call it a tomb.
There's got to be a specific word for those above ground mausoleum things, but
I think that's it. Above ground mausoleum thing is what.
That's actually what they call the cemetery. Yes, welcome.
That's the French word for it.
Yeah.
Welcome to our collection of above ground mausoleum things. But sometimes you walk by these and there's like 14 names on it. You're like, how in the world did 14 bodies fit in that tiny little thing? And it turns out that they basically get cremated inside. And crypt. Yes, that's the word we're looking for. Thank you, Dan.
So if it's a cold season, they're not going to burn, and it might get a little stuffed up.
Well, I think that's why they wait. Like once they put somebody, like say your grandfather died, right? And 6 months later, your grandmother died. They wouldn't be able to put her in until another 6 months. They are not allowed to open it until the 366th day. So, and they like brick it up basically, and they have to like break this seal open in order to get to it. It's a crazy
That's crazy.
system.
I didn't know any of this.
Neither did I until we
Micah
went.
says that sometimes they do just stack them. It's gonna be a gruesome job opening that thing up.
Yes.
Yeah. Creepy.
Cool. Yes.
Very creepy.
So we did go to Lafitte's pretty often. We did make a stop over at Muriel's, which was absolutely my favorite lounge bar. It was just my favorite bar in New Orleans. This place, I don't know if I just said that about Lafitte's, but this one is also my favorite bar in New Orleans. So I just love bars in New Orleans. But no, this one was great. It's so classy inside. Now, we didn't sit down for dinner. We weren't dressed for the occasion, but we did go to the Courtyard Bar, which is where they've had that poltergeist activity where the glasses have been thrown. They said 3 times since 2001. And this is directly from the hotel's website. And they said that glasses have flown from the bar across 12 feet to the brick wall behind it. And they just smash against the wall. And so we went in there. We're like, all right, let's see if we can get some footage. We'll grab a couple old fashions. And then we wanted to get up on the second floor balcony. And when we did, we're like, oh, how do we get up there? And they gave us access, and it actually took us right through where they set up this table for Jordan, the ghost, that their resident ghost. Now, they believe there's probably multiple spirits there, but his is the main one. He unfortunately ended his own life on the second floor of that bar when he lost the home in a game of cards. And while that sounds like a story we've heard a million times before, this one, again, is verified by their own website. It's verified by multiple historians. So like that was an actual thing that happened. We hear rumors of this with a bunch of haunted locations, like, oh, and then the owner lost the hotel in a game of cards. Like, how many people are gambling their entire house or their entire hotel on a game of cards? But I guess it was a thing that happened a little bit more often back in the day. So we had heard, you always get these varying accounts. We had heard that he threw himself out of a second floor window and passed away. But if you go there and if the structure is original to what it was, if you throw yourself out of the second floor window, you're going to land on the second floor balcony. You're going to be just fine. But I think according to their website and according to a few other sources, they say that he actually had hanged himself on the second floor where the seance rooms now are. And there's multiple. So anyways, we went through the stairway, and underneath the stairwell is the table that they set for him every day. And on my first ghost tour that I did a few years ago, that we had stopped at Muriel's, and they had said, because you can see the table from the sidewalk. So as you walk by the room, there's when you walk by the restaurant, there's a window, and you could see down this kind of candlelit hallway, and you see that one table by itself set up in its own little room. And it is pretty eerie, but the ghost tour will stop there and they'll tell you about the ghost of Jordan. And apparently at some point, the poltergeist activity and the hauntings had gotten so terrifying inside the restaurant that they said, you know what, let's set up a table for Jordan. Let's see if this will calm his spirit down. So they set it up for him. They poured him his favorite wine, and they do this every single day. And they said, I guess sometimes they set out bread for him. We didn't see bread on the table while we were there, but they set out bread and wine for him. And I guess since they set that up, there hasn't been any more like angry poltergeist activity. And it also makes
wanted wine.
That's it. He was pissed off. He wanted some wine.
God, what are we gonna have to do for Dave when he dies? We're gonna have to set up a whole whiskey distillery, barrels of whiskey every day,
just rolling them in. But I was really excited when we went in there because I hadn't gone inside that restaurant before. I had heard about this story. I had seen the table before. You try to take pictures at the window, but you can't really get a good shot of that table from the windows. And, you know, like anytime you're trying to take pictures of a window and you think maybe you caught something, you don't know if it's just something reflecting off it or whatever. But anyways, they let us through and we're in that stairwell with that table. So we got up close and personal. We're able to go right up to it. That was super cool. Went up to the second floor, hung out on the balcony for a little bit, just had a good time. But then we started exploring the second floor, and this is where the seance rooms were. And then we found the seance room, and it's just super gorgeous. I mean, the place it's all lit up red. It has these awesome decorations. The whole vibe inside those seance rooms is absolutely amazing. And it's supposed to be the most active part of that building, where they have, I guess they've done a bunch of paranormal investigations there. They get knockings on the walls. They get different voices that have been captured, shadow figures moving around. This is like the place you want to be if you're just looking to hang out. And for most of the night, we actually had that lounge to ourselves, which was pretty damn cool. So very, very cool spot. Highly recommend if you're going down there, swing by Muriel's. The food looked good. Like I said, we didn't eat there, but the looks like a classy joint.
Can you dine at that table? Because I swore that when I was looking to go there, that there was some experience where you can dine. Maybe it wasn't at his table, but next to it. But I'm pretty sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did let you. They have it when we went there. It was roped off. They had the wine poured. They actually had a couple of glasses of wine poured, and it was roped off. They have a little sign on it that says, "This is for our resident spirit, Jordan," and it just kind of tells a little bit of history on him. But it didn't look like it was available to the public. But there is also no tables around it. It's in its own separate room. So, but that I wouldn't be surprised if they offered something like that where you can go sit at the actual table. I wonder if they
look into that. If
they leave that one chair open for him and you're just kind of like dining with the ghost, that'd actually be a really cool experience.
Well, that would be the way you would want to do it, right? You would have
definitely.
That's the way I would want the table set up myself. That's a great that'd be a great thing to do. That place is super cool. That seance room was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Favorite stuff.
I wanted to go there so bad. I'm very upset. I was supposed to, and I don't know what happened. And I want to say I did go to some bars I don't know if they were haunted or not. I might have
Probably.
gone to a haunted bar and not known it.
Probably in New Orleans, I would say most likely. Like we said, we walked in, anyone would be like, "Yep, definitely haunted."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you got to do is ask the staff. We say that about everywhere. It's, when all else fails, just ask the people that work there. Ask the bartenders, ask the hotel manager. It's like, hey, what kind of hauntings have happened here? 9 times out of 10, you're going to get something out of them. So, or you shake them and you force the answers out of them, like we did in Rhode Island. You got to do what you gotta do.
Don't say we. You're the one who's going up to tour guides and shaking them to death.
I didn't actually shake him, which is good because he was old.
Oh my God.
I did come with an accusatory tone, though. Anyways.
You should have shaken that woman at the freaking cemetery just to make sure she was alive for that 3 minutes that she was standing there.
I would not recommend or endorse shaking the elderly, folks. Don't do it. Don't listen to Rob and his advice. So the hotel that we stayed at, I think we can touch on that for a little bit. It does have some haunted history.
Yeah.
And beautiful hotel. Absolutely loved it. The 14th floor in particular is supposed to be the most haunted. Dave, do you have your notes on that?
Nope.
Great. Someone
else.
So
the main haunting at the Hotel Monteleone is the story of Maurice Begar. We're just going to go through all the pronunciations of this last name.
Well done.
Begere is the last name. So Maurice was a frequent guest at the hotel with his parents, Jacques, and Josephine. Yeah. One night while the parents were at the French Opera House, Maurice became very ill and died in the care of his nanny. His mother and father were obviously very shaken up, sad, and his mother would return to the hotel each year on the anniversary of his death, hoping to see his spirit. According to legend, she eventually saw Maurice on the 14th floor, who told her, "Mummy, don't cry, I'm fine," which would probably immediately make the mother cry, I would say.
It's heartbreaking, though.
It is. So other guests have reported seeing Maurice's ghost, sometimes playing with a ball or laughing in the hallways. Some also believe that the elevator is haunted. Shocking that a hotel elevator is haunted, and that it stops on the 14th floor when children are present. Other guests have reported seeing a phantom child reaching for their hands and hearing the sound of jazz singers in the lobby. So that is there's more hauntings associated here as well, with former staff members haunting the place, which every hotel, former staff members, I mean, you spend the majority of your life somewhere. For the 4 of us, myself, Lindsey, Dave, we're just going to be haunting YouTube in our afterlife because we spend way too much time doing YouTube content. But yeah, that is the hauntings of the Hotel Monteleone.
Did you guys experience anything that could possibly be haunting while we were staying there?
I didn't notice anything really. I did my fair share of wandering those floors to get footage. It was really eerie, like late at night. There was one night where I came home relatively late and came back to the hotel relatively late. And this was the first time that the lobby was completely empty. And it did have a different kind of feeling in it when there isn't a ton of people going through the lobby, because any point in the day, there's 100 people inside. There's another 50 people on the sidewalk right outside. So it's hard to like really get and that bar that they have in the hotel lobby is just always absolutely packed. So it's hard to really get a feeling for how, the energy is in the place when it's just so busy. But the lobby late when there was nobody in there, it definitely had an eerie feeling to it.
Yeah. And to answer Brodad's question in the chat, does the building have 14 floors? Did they skip the 13th? They actually did skip the 13th on this one, so the 14th is actually the 13th in this particular hotel.
Did you guys stay on the 14th floor?
No, we were on the 6th floor, but we would go up to the 14th floor. By we, I mean Jesse, because we made him sleep on the floor of the hotel, and
I wasn't sleeping a lot. So I would just go around and get footage to avoid having back problems.
That's where, we were out till 3-4 a.m. every night getting footage.
Donnie apparently knows about all the cool things that we didn't know about. Is that it has a rotating bar? Does that mean the bar spins? Maybe we didn't notice.
No, it means it rotates.
Maybe we were spinning. And then there's also apparently a rooftop pool that we didn't go to either.
Wow.
But hey, we missed out.
That's so cool.
We missed out on all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
I did.
But I did take naps on the hotel floor. So at least we had some fun. A little bit of fun. But no, the hotel's awesome. Highly recommend if you're looking for a place to stay. Now, it's not one of the ones that are right on Bourbon Street, so you don't get the absolute noisy chaos going on all night long. It is close enough where you can walk right over there if that's the place that you'd rather be. I mean, for me, like Bourbon Street was cool, but I much prefer going to other sections of the French Quarter because there's so many amazing restaurants and bars just all around the city. And we went down Pirate Alley. I don't want to touch on a bunch of stuff that we might touch on next week, but Pirate Alley was also really cool.
Yeah.
But I think we hop into some of the vampire stories here.
Hells yeah. You guys got some? Just kidding. I know I have all the vampire.
Did you guys go to the Vampire Cafe?
Yes.
Was that the cafe we went to? Yeah.
That's where our ghost tour was out of.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we went to the Vampire Cafe and we went to the Vampire Shop as well. So very cool spots along the city there as well. So we have quite a few vampire stories to cover, but let's start with one we didn't talk about in the opening of this episode. Let's talk about John and Wayne Carter, who were brothers that lived in the French Quarter. They were described as ordinary men who worked on the docks, but rumors about their true nature began to circulate after a shocking discovery. In 1932, a young woman was reportedly found wandering the streets, weak and covered in blood. She was taken to the police and she revealed a horrifying story. She had been held captive in the Carter's apartment where she claimed they would cut her wrist and drink her blood.
Oh my God.
Police raided the Carter's apartment and found a gruesome scene. There were several other captives, all bound in various stages of blood loss. These victims reportedly told a similar story. The brothers would drink from them daily, keeping them alive but weak. The captives claimed that they had been there for weeks, possibly months. So the brothers obviously were not at the apartment when the police showed up. So they waited and would later waited for them and arrested them upon them coming back to the apartment. They admitted to everything and they were executed for these transgressions. However, the legend doesn't end there. Years after their death, when their crypt in one of New Orleans' famous cemeteries was opened for another family member to be buried, it's said that the bodies of John and Wayne Carter were missing, sparking the belief that they were not human and had returned from the grave. And are you guys ready to hear that it is all bullshit?
Oh, no.
Not real. Not happen. Did not happen. There is no evidence. But this is like one of the most famous vampire stories out of New Orleans. I tried looking into it. There was no brothers named John and Wayne Carter that were ever executed. The tale was supposed to take place in 1932. And it's in a big city. So if this actually happened, we would have newspaper documentation on it. They do this whole, their bodies were missing. We just described how the bodies cook in the New Orleans crypts. So of course their bodies were missing, right? They're not going to.
Wait, so what part of the story never happened?
All of it. None of it happened. But if you go to New Orleans, this is one of the top vampire stories. The other stories that we touched on was the Casket Girls, which is based in some truth, but it's been embellished over the years where they were dragging these wooden boxes. They were the actual wooden boxes they could carry, like they were small and able.
Maybe they were tired. Maybe they're dragging them.
I don't know, bro. You'd have to purposely be like dragging it on the ground like it's a race car toy or something.
Unless they're tugging them on ropes.
But they're like this big, Dave.
Yeah, but if they don't want to carry a big box like that, especially if you're weakened state, maybe
as
easier to pull it.
As a full size adult, Dave, this is not. I know this is large, like a large size.
What if they were very short?
Yeah, like Dave.
Yeah,
I feel like that sounds like me. I'm very short and very pale. So if I was carrying around a wooden box, it
could have been heavy. They came off the boat and they were very sickly, right? So it's believed that they could have had tuberculosis or something, which was why their gums would have been retreating. Their teeth could have made it look like receding. Yeah, could have made it look like their teeth were vampire teeth or whatever.
Yeah.
pale. I mean, they go out in the sun, they're getting affected by the New Orleans sun. I mean, that could happen to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if they're in a weakened state, I maybe the box were the boxes really that small?
Yeah, they were really that small. I mean, if you saw the picture,
Oh, scurvy's another. Yeah, it might have been scurvy, not
scurvy's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to come above deck because women on ships was considered bad luck. So they would keep them stowed below and not let them see the sun, which is
Also, if they were sick, they would keep them below deck anyways.
right. But they just because they were women, they were kept below deck to start. So you're double whammy there, which is insane. Oh, they're bad luck. Keep them closer to where things could happen that we sink.
Yeah.
Well, this is the not fun part of the show. I think they're all vampires. I'm going with it.
Yep.
The one that is more inconclusive is that of Jacques Saint Germain.
This was my favorite story of the whole show.
Yeah. So Jacques Saint Germain apparently showed up in 1902, and there was a Count Saint Germain in the 1700s that he claimed to be related to. And this count was known throughout several different countries, was friends with leaders who in the 1700s described him as a man that couldn't die. So there was already tales of this Count Saint Germain possibly being a vampire in the 1700s. So this man shows up in 1902. He, what we believe, rents a house because the people that owned the property in the time owned a bunch of property throughout the city. So it was probably rented, and that documentation isn't going to be there like it is today, right? Where you rent stuff and sign things. So they believe he rented out this place, and it was lavish. He would have these parties, and he was always seen with beautiful women at the clubs of the time, and would throw these parties with these crazy food spreads, but would never eat. And people would start to notice, like, well, he's not just not eating at his parties. He's not eating at restaurants in public. He just shows up and he's drinking this red wine that he has in his chalice for the most part.
Now, did all of the facts to the story check out where when they checked the wine in his house that it was actually mixed with blood?
This story has not been debunked, but has not been fully proven.
Well, it's impossible to now. So unless it was written about back in the day, but then again, you never know when they're writing about stuff anyways. If you look at the Winchester house and stuff, the things that they were writing about, we don't know if those were true. What a crazy story though. Like all of the evidence points to, now I don't personally believe in vampires, but I love the stories of them. I mean, like all of the facts leading up to it, like this guy didn't eat. I do love the part where the police investigated the home and they're like, there's no food.
Yeah, that's
why are you looking for food? This guy just tried to murder someone.
Like she just jumped off a balcony. Like, we've heard of these legendary parties. It's our chance.
Yeah. I heard the food was great here. What the hell?
we need to eat. Yeah, that was that. So that's like, I think there might be some embellishment, but there is reason to believe that some portions of this story is actually true. What's funny,
sounds like somebody with alcoholism. I used to work with a guy who he would have to bring a 30 rack with him of Bud Light, and he would just drink it all day, and he couldn't stop, and he wouldn't eat lunch.
You can't just pretend that.
Yeah, you can't pretend this was a coworker.
We know it was you.
I don't drink Bud Light. But he wouldn't eat lunch, and then he said he just never really eats. He just has to slowly drink his Bud Light to not die. So, I mean, if this guy was drinking just his wine all the time, never eats.
This wasn't your business, right?
Like, no. This was
the boss was okay with this. Like, oh no, that's Jim. Jim gets to bring his 30 rack. He's got to do that or he'll die.
No, this was an old job that I had.
Jesus, that's wild. We need to do a side story on Jim drinking his 30 rack at work.
But I mean, like the similarity to this guy with his wine and never eating it is that's what it reminds me of. It could just been he was an alcoholic.
Yeah. Or he was an absolute slob when he ate, so he just did it in private. And like, imagine that, this nice, classy guy, all rich, throwing his lavish parties. Someone catches him eating, he's just stuffing his face, like, oh shit, you weren't supposed to see this.
Could they test for blood back then? How would they test if there was blood in the wine?
I think that they did have, I didn't fully read into that, but just listening to true crime stuff, I believe that they were able to test for blood and stuff around the early 1900s.
I would assume that there would be some sort of, because they could tell if blood was animal blood or human blood. So there had to have been some sort of a chemical that they could drop into the blood to see if it would react. And
Maybe just a taste test.
Yeah, that's what
they
we
would
were
bring, they would actually bring in the police force vampire, and he'd be like, "Yeah, this is good. This is good stuff."
Yeah.
I
I
drink
mean,
this.
if you're looking for blood in the wine, I don't think anyone's doing a taste test. Right?
Yeah.
All right, fun police.
I'm just saying, like, if I was like, hey, dude, I think there's blood in this, taste it. You'd be like, fuck no.
I don't know, but they do that with the crack. They always like just dip their finger in and taste it. Like, yep, that's crack.
Probably shouldn't know that, sir.
It's crack and blood. This one's got crack and blood. Yeah. Anyways.
While I was researching these, in my head, I was like, New Orleans has to be considered the vampire capital of America, right?
Of America, yeah, probably.
You would think so. Does anyone have any guesses of where the actual vampire capital of America is?
Florida.
Ohio.
No, I just made that up.
Florida
Ohio?
makes sense, I think. It's a
Jesse?
real Florida man thing to do is just be a vampire.
South Dakota.
Rhode Island
Really?
is
Nice.
considered the vampire capital of America. And we've done some stories about vampires in Rhode Island. So it does make sense when you think about it, with all the stuff that they did to people that were quote unquote vampires in the 17 and 1800s, that Rhode Island would get that designation. But I think to me, I understand why, but New Orleans is vampires.
Yep. I agree with you.
My favorite part of this entire story, though, is they say that Jacques Saint Germain is still in New Orleans, and
He hasn't died.
they claim that he is a homeless man that goes up to people screaming at him that his name is Jack and he is Jacques Saint Germain and that he's a vampire. And I just want to say that's how some homeless people act.
I'm pretty sure I've had that screamed on me at the streets on the streets of Boston.
Yeah,
several times.
I mean, it's just so all I can picture in my head is that Nicolas Cage scene from, I believe, God, I forget the name of the movie, but he's just running down the street screaming, "I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!"
Pretty much.
I really wanted to put that in this episode, but I contained myself and didn't do it.
Yeah, like if you've been alive for 100 years and now you're broke and homeless, like what are you doing? You got to figure that out. You're a vampire.
Yes.
Get your finances together.
Yeah. So that is New Orleans part 1. Before we get into some reviews and Patreon names, Lindsey, do you want to tell us some of the stuff that you have coming up on your channel and direct people to some of the videos that they definitely have to see, like the Hill House?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a bunch of episodes up already on my YouTube. But I pretty much put out at least one a week. I have one where I visited the 1,000 Steps in Spokane. It's like
Hell yeah.
some lore in that cemetery. So I found the steps, and they're just like, it's in these woods and it's very dangerous. But I got all the way there, and I just figured like I got to go up them at this point. But it's like rock climbing. It's like, it's not steps anymore.
Right.
So that one will be coming out in about a week. I did a couple of Spokane investigations, so that will be the next couple weeks going forward.
Nice. We did
Very
cover,
cool.
we did cover that on an episode, so I think our fans would love
fun.
to see that. Yep. Her links are in the show notes, so make sure you go give her YouTube and Instagram a follow. What else? I've watched a few of your stuff. You went to the Clown Motel. Rob loves that. We're going to take him there.
Yeah, I'm not too far from there. It's just a 2.5, 3 hour drive from where I am. I've been there twice. When I first started filming for YouTube years ago, it was one of the first locations I did, and I went back again by myself this time. So I noticed that the hotel itself isn't very active or haunted, but the cemetery that it's sitting on next door is very weird. Both times I had very, very weird experiences in the cemetery. So I definitely recommend going into that. But that whole area is strange. It's very close to the Mitzvah, which is a very cool location as well.
You can recommend it all you want. I am not going to the Clown Motel.
You're going.
No?
It's not
You're
happening.
Why?
Because clowns are terrifying. I'm not doing clown things.
Oh, dang. It's worth it though.
No. Hard pass.
Rob is a certified coward.
You're a coward.
Rob certifiably has no choice. We're taking him to the Clown Motel at some point.
Have you guys been to Hill House, by the way? Talking about Hill House. Have you guys visited?
We have not. It's a location I've had circled. We went to Austin in February, but that was our last Texas stop. So we've done a few Texas stops. So we want to like get to other places, but that is a place that I have, because some of the evidence that has come out of there, including your own video, is absolutely
it almost made me quit. I legitimately that night after I was done was so shook up that it was just going through my head. Like it got too real, and I felt like it was on a level of like beyond just normal spirits. Like to me it seemed like alien, just other stuff going on in there. It was just too much, and that night I really thought about quitting. But
well, glad you didn't. Yeah, that's good.
I just don't know if I'd go back.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I kind of worry about in the back of my mind. Is like, it is there something that could attach to you, or is there some point where you could get kind of
it gets physical there is the thing.
In too deep, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've only had one physical encounter, and it was brief and unfortunately happened to me. Which is
Whiskey Dave came out and just punched him in the throat.
just punching us.
What happened?
We were in the Oliver house and we were doing our walkthrough with our guide before we did the investigation, and I got scratched on the neck.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we've told this story a million times, but we were so new to like filming, and we're trying to make sure that everything's authentic, that I pulled Jesse aside off camera. I'm like, check my neck because I don't know what this is, and there was this big scratch. Should have been recording the whole thing, but yeah, that was at the Oliver house in Middleborough, Massachusetts, which is it's a very cool under the radar location.
Yeah, I have not heard of that.
Yeah, definitely check that one out. I do have some 5-star reviews to read here. The first one is from Kelly B, titled Fun and Scary. I found this one a few months ago and I've been listening to their whole catalog. So fun and interesting. Love the added side stories about their own haunted houses. And this other one is from Sam, the Viking gamer, who I've noticed has joined our Discord as well. So shout out to him for joining the Discord. Amazing podcast is the title. Ever since I found this podcast, I can't stop listening. You guys are great and love the lore behind each episode. As I continue to listen, I get more and more interested to investigate ghosts myself. Keep it up, and you have a fan for life. Thank you so much, Sam, for that 5-star review. You can also leave us a 5-star review. Easiest way to support the show. The other way you can support the show is by signing up for Patreon. We have different tiers, different rewards for joining the different tiers. Jesse is going to read out that list of names for us right now.
Right after I read this one other 5-star review, this one came in via our website, actually. It says, hey guys, 5 stars. 5-star fan with a movie review suggestion. I just got done watching Mousetrap on Peacock. I would love to hear your take on it. Happy spooky season. Thank you so much. That is from Visitor 2366. So
hell yeah.
Next time, leave your name. Millsboro, Delaware.
I think we absolutely should review that movie. I haven't watched it yet, but it's new and it's got a 1-star rating.
Oh hell yeah! Is it based on the Child's board game?
No, it's based on Disney, sort of.
Oh, it's the Steamboat Willie.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know what that is now.
I have no idea what to think now. I'm actually more lost about that movie than I was before. Okay, let's thank the patrons real quick, starting with our VIPs. The newest member of the VIPs on Patreon is Jackie F, which, if that's the Jackie F that I think it is. She also has a Dave Sucks tattoo. So look at that. She gets double credit. That might be our RIP next week. Who knows? Jackie F, Jeremy M. We have KCW, Brandina77, Kathy F. Again, a different Kathy F? No, Jackie F, Kathy F. Okay, there we go. I'm getting confused. Ghost Nurse, Janet T, another V. Dave has a new kangaroo onesie with a bottom flap. Tickle Me Tessie, Mother McTibbles, and her herd of ghost children chasing Rob with bowls of soup. I hope the soup's not very hot because that sounds dangerous.
Lindsay, do you like soup? Real quick, Lindsay, do you like soup?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my God. Why are you here?
we have Jesse is the most handsome, strong, and brave. Dave D, Kate, and Steve M. Once again, So good to meet you guys in person on Friday. Sharon V. Glitter Tees coming from Washington. Kelly C. Jennifer P. Nick. The old lady wondered how Rob got out of the crypt. That maybe explains it. Thank you, Donnie. Inspires Gaming. Also, huge shout out to Inspires. Came through during the live show and was our audio guy. He was DJing for much of the show. He also filmed some and streamed it to his Twitch. So people who were able to tune into that. Huge shout out to Inspires. And your check is in the mail, I promise. Allison V. Robert H. Laveau's Grave Rentals. New roommates every year. Anna C. Jeannie. Mallory from Montana. Mom and Pops W. Papa Squatch. Lisa J. And New Orleans Best Italian Grocer. M.O.B. Thank you so much for being our VIPs. Next up, let's hop into the Warren's Words. Let's kick that off with... Oh, come on. Guys, put some spaces into your names. All right. Editor of the Rhode Island... I don't know. Yeah, I can't read that word. You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lloyd. There are some words that
you can't read it because you're
I don't think
illiterate.
I don't think YouTube would approve of that word, so we'll
Spell it.
no. All right. Viking Gamer, Jamie E, Nick M, Jeremy M, Beth C, Serena, Shawners, Leslie F, Rachel G, Her Lady, Spook Ship, Sloshed and Oshkosh, Wahini Pirate, I Am the Bridge Witch and I Hate Rob, Julie Gooley, Eugene M, Arcade Hunters, The Bottom of Colby's Bottle, Kath Q, I Want to Be a Vampire in New Orleans, DC, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, next HGGS guest, The Other, Rachel B, Sarah Cook, RIP of the week, by the way, one of them, Sarah Cook, Janice G, Lily, Rachel B, another RIP of the week. Jesse, play some 80s music. 80s music can't die. Per Dave. Sydney, you are the worst fan by far.
Change that.
You keep talking about children like this. He's a 10, brave and strong, but can't throw shirts. Steph. Wow. Brave, strong, and a 10. That's as far as I'm going to go.
The only accurate part of that is that you can't throw shirts.
I can't. Yeah. I actually recruited my small children to go deliver shirts because I couldn't throw them at the live event. Next up, Seth on guitar, who previously had the ham hands. I'm glad you took care of that, Seth. And Human Soup. Thank you so much for being part of the Warren's Words. And finally, let's hop into the Ghost Pirate Mafia. And
Let the shit show begin.
Yep. With Deb62, Karen L, Michael M, Tanya C, Jennifer A. Well, you know me. Amber R, Brant C, Emily P, Whisper. Shane J, Mrs. Nardozzi, Kitten Clown, Shane O'Mac, Joe, Shay, Trevor S, you can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lloyd, Christina S, Kate C, Kelly C, Isla D, bloop, bloop, Crazy Legs Collector of Spoons for my soup collection, West Virginia coal miner, hashtag Jericho, please put Jesse in the walls of Jericho, just call me Bree, Miss Macabre, Michelle, Nuroku, Cold Warrior, Rob loves that vampires can suck blood through toes.
God damn it.
Not bad. D from H Town. Spogilse is Danish for ghost. Meta A. Sarah B. Dominica. Monster Mom 04. Wicked Alley. Dark Snark. Rob creeps menacingly up the hall, growing restless. Where are my succulent toes?
God
He
damn it.
shrieks, falling down to
I don't like toes.
Own
We have a
goopy
guest.
toe. Hey, I got to get through the name. These are our patrons.
It's 8 minutes long. They can relax.
You have to read it again.
I do. I have to go through it. Rob creeping. Sorry. I'm going to go narrator voice here. Rob creeps menacingly up the hall, growing restless. Where are my succulent toes? He shrieks, falling down to suck his own goopy toe.
Oh, goopy toe.
What a story. How have they not set character limits on Patreon? Okay, Megan S. Morgan S. What has a neck and has no head? Elevator. Wayne C. Jesse is the most handsome and brave after Dave. Crystal Quinn, a.k.a. not a Rob fan. Thick Boy, Freddy's baby mama, listening while freezing her nooples off at Demon Spawn's cheer practice. Alicia E. Thick Boy says, Croakley, with that punk Mandolph out of the way, I dare you to cut a promo on me tonight. Make it good. Swanee. And Rob's favorite first date is a visit to the Feats for a soup dinner after a day of fishing. Not
Sounds like
Lafitte.
the worst day of my life.
No
to be honest.
Sam from the Ball. Joe R. Al Capone. Huggy Bear. Coming soon. Shiloh National Military Park. Presented by Jesse. Solar Flare. Mariah M. Kirley J. The Philadelphia Committee of Anthony T. Cody G. Brandon W. Hooply Whooply. The Bridge Witch. And the Polkageist. Whew. Sheesh. All right.
So many.
May I ask what all the feet and soup references are for.
Those are Rob's two favorite things.
No, do not. Feet are gross, first of all, Lindsay, and everyone should cut their own feet off because they're disgusting. Soup is the most mid food that there is.
So the soup reference is because Jesse and Rob are not fans of soup, and I love soup, so we argue about it all the time.
It's just mid. Nobody's
You're
ever
mid.
been
Like daily soup or just
any
on occasion.
Any soup. Have you ever been
I feel like soup is for when you're sick, I feel like.
Exactly. That's my point. It's for when you're sick. Have you ever been like, I really want to go to this new restaurant and try this soup?
Yeah.
I did have soup today right before this, I'm not gonna lie.
But did you
What
go
kind?
to a restaurant and have you ever gone to a restaurant for soup?
Not
I will
soup.
say people call my restaurant from time to time and say, "Do you guys have soup?" And I go, "No." Always my response. Also, who calls a pizza place for soup? Come on. Anyways, that'll pretty much do it for the show. Make sure you give Lindsey a follow. That is Phantomette on YouTube and Instagram. And we're excited to see what else you have. I love the videos. I think honestly, you have some great production value with your videos. I was impressed.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Happy spooky season to you. Thank you so much for joining us. For everybody else, we will see you guys. If you're coming, we'll see you on Friday in Block Island, Rhode Island. I want to give a massive shout out one more time to Velcro Fish Sticks for 10 gifteds. Crazy Legs, Matthew T also throwing in 10 gifteds, and Brenda C coming through with a big boy donation, $50 in Super Chat. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. That makes live shows possible and trips like New Orleans possible. Next week, we're going back, though. We did do investigations in New Orleans. We didn't talk about them tonight. We're going to talk about all three of them tomorrow, and as well as hit on some other locations in New Orleans that we didn't cover tonight. So I know when you listen to this episode, you're like, oh, New Orleans. And then you're like, oh, they didn't hit on this place or that place. We're going to touch on most of those next week. But again, there's a lot. It's New Orleans. Anything else, gentlemen?
That's it for me.
All right, cool. Lindsey, thanks so much once again.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah. We'll catch you guys next time. Later.
Peace.